Hare Krishna. Oh, yeah. I got it. Translation. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who assumed the form of a fish. All glories to you. You easily acted as a boat in the form of a giant fish just to give protection to the Vedas, which had become immersed in the turbulent sea of devastation. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of a tortoise. All glories to you. In this incarnation as a divine tortoise, the great Mandara mountain rests upon your gigantic back as a pivot for churning the ocean of milk. From holding up the huge mountain, a large scar-like depression is put in your back, which has become most glorious. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of a boar, all glories to you. The earth, which had become immersed in the Garbhodaka ocean at the bottom of the universe, sits fixed upon the tip of your tusk like a spot upon the moon. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of a half-man, half-lion, all glories to you. Just as one can easily crush a wasp between one's fingernails, so in the same way the body of the wasp-like demon Hiranyakashipu has been ripped apart by the wonderful pointed nails on your beautiful lotus hands. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of a dwarf Brahmana, all glories to you. O wonderful dwarf, by your massive steps you deceive King Bali, and by the Ganges water that is emanated from the nails of your lotus feet, you deliver all living beings within this world. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of Brigupati, Parashuram, all glories to you. At Kurukshetra you bathe the earth in the rivers of blood from the bodies of the demoniac Kshatriyas that you have slain. The sins of the world are washed away by you, and because of you people are relieved from the blazing fire of material existence. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who has assumed the form of Ramachandra, all glories to you. In the battle of Lanka you destroy the 10-headed demon Ravana and distribute his heads as a delightful offering to the presiding deities of the 10 directions headed by Indra. This action was long desired by all of them, who were much harassed by this monster. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of Balaram, the yielder of the plow, right? All glories to you. On your brilliant white body, you wear garments the color of a fresh blue rain cloud. These garments are colored like the beautiful dark hue of the river Yamuna, who feels great fear due to the striking of your plowshare. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of Buddha, all glories to you. O Buddha of compassionate heart, you decry the slaughtering of poor animals performed according to the rules of Vedic sacrifice. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of Kalki, all glories to you. You appear like a comet and carry a terrifying sword for bringing about the annihilation of the wicked barbarian men at the end of the Kali Yuga. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed these 10 different forms of incarnation, all glories to you. O readers, please hear this hymn of the poet Jayadev, which is most excellent, an awarder of happiness, a best auspiciousness, and it is the best thing in this dark world. O Lord Krishna, I offer my obeisances unto you, who appear in the forms of these 10 incarnations. In the form of Matsya, you rescue the Vedas, and as Karma, you bear the Mandara mountain on your back. As Varaha, you lift the earth with your tusk, and in the form of Nrsimha, you tear open the chest of the Daitya Hiranyakashipu. In the form of Vamana, you trick the Daitya king Bali by asking him for only 3 steps of land, and then you take away the whole universe from him by expanding your steps. As Parashuram, you slay all the wicked Kshatriyas, and as Ramachandra, you conquer the Rakshasa king Ravana. In the form of Balaram, you carry a plow with you, which you subdue the wicked and draw toward you the river Yamuna. As Lord Buddha, you show compassion towards all the living beings suffering in this world. And at the end of Kali Yuga, you appear as Kalki to bewilder the mlechas, degraded low-class men. Pralaya payori jale dritavana sivedam vihitava hitra charitramakedam. Keshavadrita mina sharira Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare. If haviplutare tishtati tava prishte dana nitarana kina chakra garishte. Keshavadrita kurma sharira Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare. Vasati dashana shikare narani tavalagna Shashini kalanka kalevani magna. Keshavadrita Sukararupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare. Vakara Kamalavare Nakam Bhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranya Kashipu Tanubringam. Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare. Chalayasi Vikramane Balimadbhuta Vamana Padanakani Rajanita Janapavana. Keshavadrita Vamanarupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Kshatriya Rudhiramaye Jagadapakata Papam Snapayasi Payasi Shamita Pavatapam Keshavadrita Bhigupati Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Vistarasi Dikshurane Dikpati Kamaniyam Tashamukha Mauli Balim Ramaniyam Keshavadrita Rama Sharira Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Siva Pushi Vishadeva Sanam Jalabhabam Halahati Biti Milita Yamunabam Keshavadrita Halatara Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Nindasi Yagya Vidher Ahaha Shuti Jatam Sadaya Hridaya Darshita Pashugatam Keshavadrita Buddha Sharira Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Nivaha Nidane Kalayasi Karavalam Tumake Tumiva Kimapi Karalam Keshavadrita Kalki Sharira Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Deva Kaviridamudita Mudaram Shinu Sukadam Shubhadam Bhavasaram Keshavajita Dashavidharupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Vedanudarate Jaganati Vahate Bhugolam Udvitabharate Daityam Darajate Balim Chalyayate Kshachakshayam Kurvate Paulashadam Jayate Halam Kalayate Karunayam Atantve Lechan Murchayate Dashakriti Krite Krishnaya Tubhyam Namaha. All right. Srila Jayadev Goswami ki jai. So, today is the whole Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnana Jana Shalakya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamahyam Darati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutav Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Turbhyascha Kripasindubi Evachapatita Nam Pavane Pyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namane Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunivadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vagisha Yasya Vadane Lakshmi Yasya Chavaksisi. Yasya Ste Hrideye Samvittam Nisimham Ham Bhaje. Okay, so today is the ecstatic, is it the disappearance day? Yeah, I believe it's the disappearance day of Jayadev Goswami, who is the author of the bhajan we just sung, the Dasavatar Stotra. So I'm just going to speak a few words about this personality, just reading from this site right here. So he was a Vaishnavacharya that came before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, about 300 years before, and he served as the court pundit of Sri Lakshmana Sen, king of Bengal. So he was involved with the aristocracy of the government at the time, and him and his wife were both, devotees, and they used to worship Lord Sri Krishna with single-minded devotion, it says here. So I'm just going to read straight from this now. 300 years before the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Jayadev Goswami served as the court pundit of Sri Lakshmana Sen, king of Bengal. After him and his wife used to worship Lord Sri Krishna with single-minded devotion. After some time, he left the opulent royal life to live peacefully in a grass hut in Champahati, Navadvip. Here, Jayadev wrote Gita Govinda. One day, while working on Gita Govinda, Jayadev felt inspired to write, quote, Krishna bows down to touch the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani, unquote. Jayadev was hesitant to say something which might diminish Lord Krishna's position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He went to refresh himself with a Ganges bath before honoring Radha Madhava's Mahaprasadam. In his absence, Krishna himself, disguised as Jayadev, wrote a line in the Gita Govinda, Dehi Pada Palavam Udaram, The Lord also accepted prasadam from Padmavati. Upon returning, Jayadev was astonished to see the line. Understanding the mystery, Jayadev cried in spiritual joy and said, Padmavati, we are most fortunate. Sri Krishna himself has written the line, Dehi pada palavam udaram, and taken prasadam from your hand. Gita Govinda expresses the intense feelings of separation that Sri Radhika felt before the rasa dance. It also describes the most intimate pastimes of Radha Shyamasundar. During Lord Chaitanya's Gambhira Leela in Jagannath Puri, he would thoroughly relish hearing the Gita Govinda sung daily by Swarup Damodar and Mukunda. The author Jayadev Goswami describes Gita Govinda, quote, whatever is delightful in varieties of music, whatever is graceful in fine strains of poetry, and whatever is exquisite in the sweet art of love, let the happy and wise learn from the songs of Jayadev. Unquote. After finishing Gita Govinda, Jayadev visited Vrindavan and then lived his last in Jagannath Puri. He introduced daily reading of Gita Govinda in the temple for the pleasure of Lord Jagannath. His samadhi is in the 64 samadhis area. So that's a little bit about Jayadev Goswami. Like I said, he lived 300 years before Lord Chaitanya and author of Gita Govinda and this, what's it called? Dashavatar Stotra that we just listened to or we just sang, as well as author of other things. So, moving on, we're going to read from the Bhagavatam. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, text number 40. Does somebody want to pull it up? I can't do it on here. Can you pull it up? Okay. Word for word. So, Praja Patihi Dharma Patihi Ekada Niyaman Yaman Bhadram Prajanam Anvichan Atishtat Svarta Kamyaya Prajapatir Dharma Patir Prajapatir Dharma Patir Ekada Niyaman Yaman Ekada Niyaman Yaman Bhadram Prajanam Anvichan Bhadram Prajanam Anvichan Atishtat Svartakam Yaya Atishtat Svartakam Yaya Prajapatir Dharma Patir Ekada Niyaman Yaman Bhadram Prajanam Anvichan Atishtat Svartakam Yaya Prajapatir Dharma Patir Ekada Niyaman Yaman Bhadram Prajanam Anvichan Atishtat Svartakam Yaya. Please repeat. Prajapatir Dharma Patir Ekada Niyaman Yaman Atishtat Svartakam Yaya. Mataji. Prajapatir Dharmapatir. Ikatani Aman Yaman. Bhadram Prajanam Anvichan. Atishtat Svartakam Yaya. Prajapatihi, the forefather of all living entities. Dharmapatihi, the father of religious life. Ekada, once upon a time. Niyaman, rules and regulations. Yaman, principles of control. Bhadram, welfare. Prajanam, of the living beings. Anvichan, desiring. Atishtat, situated. Svarta, own interest. Kamyaya, so desiring. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Thus, once upon a time, the forefather of living entities and the father of religiousness, Lord Brahma, situated himself in acts of regulative principles, desiring self-interest for the welfare of all living entities. Purport. One cannot be situated in an exalted position without having undertaken a regulative life of rules and regulations. An unrestricted life of sense gratification is animal life, and Lord Brahma, in order to teach all concerned within the jurisdiction of his generations, taught the same principles of sense control for executing higher duties. He desired the welfare of all as servants of God, and anyone desiring the welfare of members of his family and generations must conduct a moral, religious life. The highest life of moral principles is to become a devotee of the Lord, because a devotee of the Lord has all the good qualities of the Lord. On the other hand, one who is not a devotee of the Lord, however qualified he may be, in the mundane sense of the term, cannot be qualified with any good quality worthy of the name. The pure devotees of the Lord, like Brahma, and persons in the chain of disciplic succession, do not do anything to instruct their subordinates without acting accordingly themselves. So, it was interesting that this came up because I was just yesterday listening to these new lectures by my Guru Maharaj about Neo-Krishna consciousness. So he's speaking about problems in the movement, changes that have happened since the 70s when Prabhupada was around and started this movement in the West. And the movement that we have today is much different from the movement back then. And a lot of it comes down to this point, which he kind of hammered on in the third part of this lecture series, that many of the members of the Krishna Consciousness Society these days are no longer properly following the regulative principles that Prabhupada has given us and are the basic minimum to take up devotional life, and as it says in the Bhagavatam many times, to come to the level of human life, let alone take up devotional service. So I'm just going to be discussing that a little bit and some of the problems with that. And yeah, let's just go ahead and start. So these regulative principles that are being talked about, that Lord Brahma is situating himself in acts of regulative principles. And is the purport here Prabhupada is speaking about, Brahma is setting an example of himself. He's showing others that he wants to obviously benefit all living entities, and in order to do that, he realizes that he needs to lead by example and live the exemplary lifestyle of acting according to these regulative principles, although he has just, as we just read, he's just taken darshan of the Supreme Lord. He is a pure devotee. He's already on the completely pure transcendental platform. So, in actuality, he doesn't actually have to follow regular principles because he's already on that pure platform. And we'll see so many examples of other devotees that have a similar story. They're on that same platform. They don't necessarily need to follow the principles, but they do to set an example for those that aren't there yet. and to help other people come up. So, Brahma is the most intelligent living entity in the universe, the creator of everything, the secondary creator, you could say. And yet he is living a life of regulation in order to set that example. And again, we see from what happened before, just right before this in the Bhagavatam, that before Brahma took darshan of the Lord, he was executing austerities, tapasya, on the order of the Lord that he heard. And so this is another example of giving us a hint at what we need to do in this human form of life to advance in spiritual consciousness and become Krishna conscious, is that this human life is meant for austerity, and we have to take that up with seriousness. And the austerity that we've been given is the order of the spiritual master. The Srila Prabhupada has given us these 4 regulative principles and 16 rounds a day minimum. So this is the austerity that we take up in this day and age. It's much more mild, you could say, than the austerities that Lord Brahma performed, or the yogis perform in Satya Yuga, where they have to meditate for thousands of years. And, like Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, that, if you want to take up this transcendental platform, you have to go to the forest, sit on kusha grass, stop the life airs and breathe in a certain way, and fix your attention on the point of your nose, and all these austerities that Arjuna himself said, I can't even do this. So what to speak of us, who are not even close to that platform. So luckily, and I was speaking about this a little bit in my class last time, we have a much simpler process, a much more less intense, you could say, austerity to perform, which is just to follow these 4 regulative principles and chant 16 rounds minimum. And by doing that, we will be following the order of the spiritual master, and thus we will receive the mercy of both him and the Lord. And through that process, when we receive the mercy, we will be imparted with transcendental knowledge, just as Lord Brahma has been after performing his austerities. Just by the mercy of the Lord, we will receive that knowledge in the disciplic succession. So there's so many examples of different devotees that have been on that transcendental platform and have, you could say, come down, even though it's a voluntary thing that they've done. It's not that they were lowered in consciousness, but they realized the importance of coming down in order to preach to the mass, the masses, the public, and bring them to a level of Krishna consciousness. So, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, we were just speaking about him. I think Mahota Prabhu was speaking about him in a previous class, about he was living extremely austerely, and just in a straw hut, I believe, and it would just rain would come through, and he just in a way that we could never imagine living in terms of austerity, and he was just chanting all day. And then he realized, or he decided to come back into the world, you could say, in order to preach. And he opened up so many temples, and he began utilizing various things that many criticize him as being materialistic. Like he rode in a motor car, he wore nice coats in the winter and such. But the thing is that he came down. He was on the platform of complete love of God, prem. He didn't have to follow any regulative principles, but he came and he began preaching to the public that you need to follow these principles. This is how you come to Krishna consciousness. And he set the example by following them himself, of course. Not that he ever wasn't, but he showed that example of how to live as a devotee in this world and preach and spread this movement. He doesn't need them. These pure devotees that are on that platform, they don't need the regulative principles at all, but we do. So they set that example for us. And this entire point of this is that we require a more sober approach to Krishna consciousness. I was hearing my Guru Maharaj speak about this as well recently, that someone that's on that platform, such as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he is relishing the topmost pastimes and the topmost level of love of God that we can't even imagine. Yet, we have to be sober, and we can't jump straight up to that higher platform. Just as it's recommended, we don't read the Bhagavatam starting at the 10th canto. We read all the way through from the start. And before that, we're reading all of Prabhupada's other books as well. Bhagavad Gita and all the small books and Science of Self-Realization, etc. And we read through systematically, and we don't jump straight to the 10th canto and to Krishna's most intimate pastimes with the gopis, because we're not ready for that. We're not mature in devotional service and Krishna consciousness to where we can properly understand that from the right perspective without having a material perspective on it. So these principles have been introduced, these regulative principles of no illicit sex, no gambling, no meat eating, no intoxication. They've been introduced to sober us to the point where we can become detached from material life and material desires and become attached to spiritual life, spiritual desires, and to ultimately to Krishna. So this is like it's been described, I think Prabhupada described this material world as like a hospital, or I guess, no, the temples are like a hospital. And we come here and we check in voluntarily because we know that we're sick with material desire, and we have this material disease, the skin disease. We're identifying as the body, and we have all these material desires we want to fulfill. We think that'll bring us happiness. So these regulative principles sober us up in a way that we are not grossly engaged in material activities anymore, and we're able to slowly or over time mitigate those desires, and through the chanting of our rounds as well, that's what purifies our consciousness and ultimately is a sustainable way to detach us from these four sinful pillars of sinful life that at least I know I was engaged in before I came here. I'm not sure about you guys. But as I was saying, so, the Acharyas, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, they come and they show us the example. They lead by example. Srila Prabhupada would never, be in the same room as a woman alone. He, of course, followed, all the four regular principles and such. He woke up early, he didn't sleep much. Not that we should imitate that, but he showed us that we should sleep less, and he was always engaged in service, always writing his books, always preaching, traveling. He showed us the ideal way to live, and he told us exactly what to do. And the problem that a lot of the devotional society is facing nowadays is that Prabhupada's words and his instructions are being minimized and dismissed as something, as if it can possibly be dismissed, or as if it's just a suggestion, or the idea is that times have changed now and things are different, so we have to have a different approach, and that worked in Prabhupada's time, book distribution, but now it doesn't work, it just fries people out. Having a kirtan mela is much more conducive to making devotees and bringing people in, but as my Guru Maharaj was pointing out in this talk, the problem that arises from that, well, there's many problems, but one prominent problem that arises is that people come into Krishna consciousness and they don't actually understand what it is about. So they don't read the books because nobody distributes them to them, or they never even tell them about them. They maybe chant some kirtan, but there's also mixed in with chanting like Om Namah Shivaya and other, worshiping demigods and kirtan, and this mishmash, this hodgepodge of neo-spirituality. And it reminded me, his talks reminded me of these conventions we go to, the BMSE, Body, Mind, and Spirit Expo. They have them all over the country. And we go there, and it's an entire convention center filled with people selling crystals, mediums, psychics. I met this guy that had this like wired thing, like it's like these electrical wires you hook up to your body and massages your body. All kinds of crazy things, people selling their artwork, just all kinds of insane things, people telling your future, such and such, horoscopes, everything like that. So, in that whole convention, basically there's the booth with Prabhupada's books is like a diamond, right? And the rest of it is like broken glass. And people are going around happily shelling out tons of money for this broken glass, and then when they get to the diamond store, they have the opportunity to get the most valuable thing in human life, and to perfect their human form of life by getting Prabhupada's books and reading them. But so many of them just dismiss it. It's a very unfortunate thing. But this just reminded me of how the movement is being described as nowadays. It's very wishy-washy, and you'd almost think that these people that are, in the devotional society and engaging in all these activities that Prabhupada was strongly against, they're almost closer to these wishy-washy so-called spiritualists and these conventions. They're closer to that than they are to the platform of pure devotional service and to how things were, at least in Prabhupada's time. So it's a very unfortunate situation, and it needs to be addressed. Again, as my Guru Maharaj was mentioning in this talk, that it's a very slippery slope. You kind of dismiss one thing that Prabhupada says, that okay, well maybe let's just take like one example, maybe homosexuality is okay. And Prabhupada was against that, so okay, you dismiss one thing that Prabhupada says, but now you've opened that gate and you can start dismissing as many things as you want. And whereas the proper understanding is that everything Prabhupada said and did was perfect. He's a pure devotee. Everything he says is for our benefit, and every instruction he gave us is something we should follow if we want to advance in Krishna consciousness properly. Otherwise, if we just dismiss one thing he says and don't follow that, another example that my Guru Maharaj was giving was having a beard. So many people are attached to this frivolous thing, this beard. If you just dismiss this one thing, your entire mindset is completely messed up. It's completely backwards, and it's that as long as my guru says what I want to hear and tells me to do things I want to do, then I'll do it. Otherwise, I'm not going to follow him. This is completely backwards and wrong, and you might as well not even be trying to advance in devotional life if that's your mindset. You come to devotional life knowing that I know nothing. Oma jnanitimirandasya jnananjana shalakya chakshur militam yena tasmai shri gurave namah. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. So we know that we come from complete ignorance. So therefore, any opinions or feelings of how things should be this way or that way, my guru should say this or that, it's all wrong. It's all the delusion of the mind. It's all the false ego asserting itself and trying to continue keeping us in Maya and illusion and keeping us in this cycle of birth and death. Prabhupada said so many times, this was such a strong point of his preaching, is following these principles. He said, I'm paraphrasing here, but it was something like, the devotees asked him, how do you like show love for your spiritual master? Like, what does it feel like to show your love for your spiritual master? And they're expecting him to say something like, oh, you'll feel it within your heart, and you'll feel like these butterflies, and that you'll feel, a nice warmth or whatever. But he said, if you want to show that you love the spiritual master, you follow the regulative principles, and you chant your rounds properly. And they were kind of shocked, like, wow, okay. This is, you take vows at the time of initiation, that you're going to follow these things. So if you want to show that you love your spiritual master, you follow the vows. You don't break them. You made a promise. Just like, nowadays it's all messed up, but traditionally marriage, you take vows that you're going to stay with this person. And, no matter what happens, through thick or thin, ups and downs, you stay with that person. And another point I wanted to make was that, you can see what starts to happen in society when these principles start being broken. We were looking at this little documentary a few weeks ago about this thing that happened at a devotional community, and one thing that I took away from it was there was a story of this devotee that was breaking some principles. He was getting intoxicated and he was having illicit sex. And from that stemmed so much trouble. There ended up being, this devotee ended up being killed actually because of it, because he was with someone else's wife and then that person found out. And anyways, it was very messy. So it just made me realize this is what happens when you start breaking the four regular principles. It's complete chaos. And it's said in the Bhagavatam, I don't know the exact, maybe you know the exact chapter and everything, but that this chapter of the cow of Dharma, and the legs are being chopped off by the personality of Kali, and Maharaj Parikshit says to the personality of Kali, he's about to kill the personality of Kali, and then the personality of Kali, I guess, begs for shelter and asks, please, don't spare me. And he said, Maharaj Parikshit says, okay, well, you can go wherever there is these four sinful activities, you can go take shelter there. And so it's very apparent that when these activities start happening, these sinful activities start occurring, the personality of Kali appears, and chaos and discord and horrible things begin happening because of that. It's just very, very straightforward stuff. And, somewhere like here, at least, in the couple years I've been here, you see that everybody's following these principles, and there's it's a harmony. There's no struggle, there's no strife, there's no discontent, there's no arguing. It's like little things here and there, but it's all, anything that is kind of a conflict is resolved pretty instantly, and there's no hard feelings. Whereas, in the karmi world, there's always these four things are happening, and always there is struggle, anxiety, discontent. This person hates that person. This person has a grudge against this person because of this thing they did 5 years ago, and it goes on and on and on like that. This is my experience, at least, living in the material world. So, the other thing that happens is that these, so the sahajas will come and say that, oh, well, we do follow the four principles, no meat, fish, eggs, and gambling. And so this is also another example of what happens when you start to deviate from Prabhupada's teachings and dismiss his words and twist his words and try to make your own version of Krishna consciousness and your own version of devotional service. This following these principles is how we get to the human level. This is the base level for just getting to being a human, let alone practicing devotional service. And you see, again, like I said, in the society nowadays, almost nobody is following these principles, and therefore the entire society has become like an animal society. Let's see. There's a few verses I wanted to just read out. Maybe you could pull them up. Let's go to 1, 2, 10. Bhagavatam 1, 2, 10. Yeah. No, you can read this in Sanskrit, it's fine. kamasya nindriya pritir labho jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jignasya narto yascheta karma bihi. Translation: Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation. Since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth, nothing else should be the goal of one's works. And of course, this reminds me of one of my favorite verses that Motsa Prabhu always quotes: Labdva sudurlabhamidam bahu sambhavante manusham artadam anityam api hariraha turnam yatetana pratedana mrityu yava nishayasaya vishaya kalasarvatasya. That this human form of life is very rare, and once having achieved it, one should quickly endeavor for self-realization, knowing that this sense gratification is available even among the hogs and dogs. So ultimately, what people that break these four principles are searching after is this sense gratification. And as it's been discussed so many times before, this sense gratification is available even amongst the most abominable species of life. They're enjoying sex life, they're enjoying eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. But we're stuck in this predicament where, as Chandanacharya Prabhu was saying yesterday, that we're like the worm in stool that gets picked out, placed a little bit away from the stool, and crawls right back to the stool. Because we're conditioned after millions and billions of births, since time immemorial, to engage in these activities and try to find some kind of happiness in the senses. We're trying to squeeze the juice out of a lemon that's got no juice left, and it continuously just gets worse and worse and worse as we glide down this slope, and it ultimately leads us into hellish life. This is following these principles. This is what surrender actually means. Of course, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadhamman pratyaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshayishami mashura. Surrender unto me, and I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. So this is what that means. Surrender unto me is you follow the orders of the spiritual master. You follow regulative principles in devotional service. And that's part of it. That's not everything, but the beginning first step is to agree to follow these regulative principles and live in a way that Krishna wants us to live, which is very explicitly detailed, of course, in the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita, that we should live like human beings and we should not chase after this sense gratification like hogs and dogs. There's so many examples. I mean, like I said, I've said this a few times, but another one is Lord Chaitanya himself. He was a very strict follower of the rules and regulations. He was, when he was a sannyasi, when he was walking down the road and a woman was there, he would go away to the other side, right? Or he would just stay far away from women. Yeah, he would avoid, association of women. Even his, women Matajis that would come and try to offer obeisances to him, they would have to stay at a distance and offer from afar. There's the pastime of, Chota Haridas, that, he accidentally, I guess you could say, felt some lust towards a Mataji, and because of that, he was banished from Lord Chaitanya's association. So Lord Chaitanya was extremely strict in these things, and even when it comes down to simple things like this, the beard, like we were talking about earlier, Prabhupada said that the only reason a man keeps a beard is to attract the opposite sex. So Lord Chaitanya himself, was it Sanatan Goswami that when he came he had grown some hair, because he was traveling, and one of the first things Lord Chaitanya said was get him shaved up. It's very important. He was emphasizing that. So all these things, our acharyas and even Lord Chaitanya himself are setting that example, showing us how to be very strict in following the regular principles, following the orders of the spiritual master, and engaging in the proper behavior in order to advance in spiritual life. This is a very slippery slope, and it's also compared to the razor's edge. I was thinking of the analogy of a tightrope, actually, that I don't know if you've ever seen people do the slack line where they like tie this thing to two trees, and it's like they tie it really tight and then they can like stand on it and they do like whatever, like, I don't know, it's just like a fun like balance thing that the people do. But the thing is, it has to be pretty tight, and if it's loosened even a little bit, it becomes almost impossible or completely impossible to stay on it. So similarly, we have to keep tightly adhere to the principles of devotional service. And if we loosen even a little bit, in this way, this is okay to not follow this completely. We can have chocolate, we can have a beard, this and that. It's a slippery slope, and we're liable to get cut by that razor or fall off that tightrope, whichever one you prefer to think of. Let's see if I had anything else. Yeah, I mean, I'll just end it by saying, this is like the analogy of, what is it, that you're holding silver and someone throws you diamonds and you have to drop the silver to catch the diamonds. How else can we possibly develop this higher taste and to start developing love for Krishna and attachment to devotees and devotional service if we, in our minds, are still attached to these pillars of sinful life? It's like, again, it's like trying to hold on to something and hold on to silver and catch diamonds at the same time. It's not possible. So we have to drop the lesser thing and grab the greater thing in order to experience that higher taste. One thing that I've been meditating on recently is the name of Lord Vishnu, Rishikesh, that he's the controller of the senses. So, we always say that when we put on tilak in the morning. And I always kind of, in my mind, pray that, please, because I know by my own power, I have no ability to follow these regular principles and chant my 16 rounds and wake up early. But by the mercy of the devotees and the Lord, that I'm able to be in the association and follow these things. So I always pray that, I can please, please, Lord, control my senses and my mind so that I can focus on hearing your name while I'm chanting and, do my sadhana nicely and do my services very nicely and try to everything, be fully focused on whatever I'm doing at the moment in devotional service. And this is how we make advancement, that we have to ultimately rely on the mercy and pray for the mercy, beg for it, and ask for Krishna, the controller of our senses, to do that, take control and bring us higher and purify us of all of these sinful propensities. So I'll end my class there. If there's any comments or questions, please feel free to ask. I got the mic here for some reason. Yeah, it's in that. This isn't on over there. Do you know how to turn it on? Do you know how to do it, Mason? The receiver, this thing. No, this thing is plugged into the mixer. Do we need it? No, I guess not. It's fine. Just use that, yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Just two things, but anyways, kind of like one funny thing is, you're talking about like tightrope walking. I don't know if you remember, but there was like this one guy, I'm pretty sure he like tightrope walked across the Twin Towers.
Oh yeah. I never saw that, but I saw like there's some movie about that or something.
Yeah, I think I saw it. I remember seeing pictures. I remember seeing it young, like growing up. But anyways, it's like he did such a dangerous thing, it's like freaking crazy. But it's like the spiritual life is like much more dangerous, because it's just like a little bit here, it's just like millions and millions of births. It's like he falls and dies, it's like whatever. But it's like, it's like it's like his goal is like, he's tightrope walking to like, achieve like, fame or whatever. But like we're like trying to perfect ourselves in spiritual life to, become pure devotees, go back home, back to Godhead. So it's just like whatever, he becomes, he dies and he doesn't become famous. But he still becomes famous because if you die like that, then you're known. But, even just a little bit here or there, it's like so so many different things can happen in Krishna consciousness. But the other thing I was thinking was that this verse, it's mentioned here I think Prabhu mentions a point in the purport, but I'll just read the translation. But he says, once upon a time, the forefathers of living entities. So anyways, he engaged in those activities for the welfare of others. But just like, how important it is in Krishna consciousness that, there's some like senior devotee or like someone that we actually look up to and receive inspiration for, because that inspires us. Because it seems like the general tendency amongst living entities is like, to kind of like to be like lazy, like the lack of a better word, and to like maybe take it easy. But then like, there's living entities here, they take inspiration from Brahma and like, okay, like I have to do this. So similarly in Krishna consciousness, like, where there's a spiritual master or some like senior devotee that like, okay, like inspires us to keep surrendering more, keep trying, or, whatever. We have these difficulties or obstacles, but then they like, we see them or they preach to us and like, you can overcome it. Like I've done it, and just like keep going forward, and like how important that is in Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, that reminds me of another point I wanted to make that I forgot to write down, was that we were talking about just these different like Mayavadis and like how this is like, all these Indian gurus that we both used to kind of like look into and stuff, because like if you look for anything spiritual, you're going to find that basically. And like we were talking about this one that he was claiming that he was on like the topmost platform of like self-realization or whatever. He's completely disidentified from his body, but at the same time he's like addicted, like hopelessly addicted to cigarettes. Like he chain smoke cigarettes, and like he ran a cigarette shop and everything. Like, and so like you see that when this Mayavad comes in, it allows these people, gives them a concession to, they can actually do anything they want. They can like engage in illicit sex or like break any regulative principle and just say like, it doesn't matter, because like I ultimately realized that it's all one. Like I am God, so like I can do it. It's like there's no restriction. Whereas when I came here and I saw like, okay, like there's other people from like a similar background, I guess you could say, to me. I mean, they're way more exalted than me, but they're other like Americans and stuff, like, and they're doing this, like, okay, like I never thought I could do it before, and like I was like, oh well, I like that idea that I don't have to follow principles. Like, cool, like I'll do that. But seeing people that are actually doing it and like seeing how happy they are and like just like kind and like just like fired up to like preach, and how knowledgeable everyone here is, that really inspired me to take it up more seriously. And like you said, it continues to be an inspiration. That's a good point. Anything else at all? Let me see. I think I had one more thing I wanted to read. I forgot. Let me see. I'll just read it. Is there anything online? Anything?
No. He didn't say that. He would text or call.
There's this verse in the Bhagavad Gita I just wanted to read out. So it's Tasmat Tvam Indriyani Ado Niyamya Bharatar Shabha Papmanam Prajahihyenam Yana Vijnana Nashanam. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. And then in the purport, Prabhupada says, lust is only the perverted reflection of the love of God, which is natural for every living entity. But if one is educated in Krishna consciousness from the very beginning, that natural love of God cannot deteriorate into lust. When love of God deteriorates into lust, it is very difficult to return to the normal condition. Nonetheless, Krishna consciousness is so powerful that even a late beginner can become a lover of God by following the regulative principles of devotional service. So from any stage of life or from the time of understanding its urgency, one can begin regulating the senses in Krishna consciousness, devotional service to the Lord, and turn the lust into love of Godhead, the highest perfectional stage of human life. So that gave me a lot of hope when I read it, because I'm a late comer to devotional service. So Prabhupada says it. That gives me hope. Okay, that's it. All right. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Panchakalpas Rubhyascha Kripasinubhyascha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha.